The real reason music is getting worse. Is it really happening? Rick Beato says so. Maybe. Or he's clickbaiting me. He's clickbaiting us. Subscribe. Let's check this out.
Hey everybody, I'm Rick Beato. We're going to try something new today. This video is on the history of the music business and technology.
This is talking about music business, not art. Art. Not the art. Okay.
2 acts. Act 1. Music is too easy to make. What do I mean by music is too easy to make? Let's just go back to the 1940s and 50s. Frank Sinatra used to get up in front of an orchestra and sing a vocal take. And
I've been making music with AI, man.
they had one microphone. And they would get it balanced just right. Frank would say, okay, I'm ready to do it. And he'd sing it.
Come fly with me, let's float down to Peru.
Then you get into the 1960s.
Okay, but I do stuff with one mic.
Have
With
things
the
where you have multi-track machines. You could go in if you had a mistake in a vocal part or any instrument.
the
you
Beatles.
do a punch in. Oh, I don't
Ringo wasn't even the best drummer of the Beatles.
like that word. I sang it out of tune, or I want to change this lyric. You go in and you just punch in, fix the line, punch out. Fast forward to 1998 with Cher, the Believe song. They invented this thing, auto-tune. That I've talked about this a million times on here. But auto-tune was a plug-in that would go into these DAWs, digital audio workstations.
Yes.
So you'd have something like Pro Tools or Logic or Ableton. What you do is you take the vocal, let's say the song's in C major. Any note in the key of C major, it would tune the note to. Well,
Yes,
T-Pain and
auto-tune,
people like that
auto-tune,
realized
yes.
if you put it on a really hard tuning, it would make it sound like a keyboard. And that's what they did in the Believe
Yeah, but here's the thing, man. You can also do it stylistically and choose to do it. Make something new with it.
song. Well, then the same thing starts happening with drum parts. Guys playing a drum part, and you're like, you know what? This would be a great take of this first verse if this one hi-hat wasn't a little dragged. Well, let's move it back a little bit, or let's move it forward, whatever. And then you move that, and you're like, well, the snare after it kind of sounds weird because we moved that forward. Now the snare sounds like it's dragged, so we do that. Then you're like, well, you know what? Let's just look at the grid lines, the bar lines, and we'll just move them to that. Then you start cutting out, moving them. Then they give you this tool called Beat Detective. Then you can actually quantize an entire part. So then it becomes like a drum machine. So it's not human-like.
Yes, if you want to do that, the option is there. If you want to.
Here's an example of a quantized drum part. It's John Bonham's drum performance from Fool in the Rain that's a shuffle.
Great song.
Now here's the actual human performance of John Bonham. Notice the swing in it. Once you've quantized the drum part, it's a drum machine. It's just like Superior drums.
Yeah, but the Superior drums don't sound like the live kit. That's a big difference to me, personally.
So what started happening in the year 2000 or so is that everyone started quantizing their drums because the budgets to hire session guys like Josh Freese and Kenny Aronoff went away, and you'd have to use the crappy drummers. I mean, some bands would have good enough drummers to play. So once you fix their parts, you start moving the bass around, you start moving the guitars around, and then you pretty much have sterile, generic, quantized rock music that has no vibe at all.
Okay, so now we're getting here. Here's a bias. This is pertaining to rock music. Rock is alive. We're bringing it back, man. Yeah.
The other thing that people realize is that it's really difficult and time-consuming to record a drum set. You need a studio and a lot of gear. Look at all these mics. Now you can put and have a couple.
What does this have to do with it getting worse?
It's hard to record it well. Not only is it hard to play the drums well, but it's hard to record the drums well, and you have to have training. It's not easy to do. You have a great ear. You got to know how to tune them. You got to know what is a good snare sound from a bad sound. You got to know if the toms are ringing too much. You got to know if they're in the right pitches. All this kind
This dude is dadsplaining so good right now.
of stuff. There's so many decisions to make. Now, some of you are out there thinking, what are you talking about, Rick? You don't need to have a good sounding room. You can have a crappy sounding room. You don't even need good mics because you're going to just replace everything with samples. Well, where do you think samples come from? They come from people that know how to record them. That one was for free. It's different.
I get what he did there. That's I guess, clever move, but I like a lot of samples that don't sound good to everyone else. So he's coming from a very hard confirmation bias is the term.
Difficult to get a good guitar sound. You have to have a good sounding amp, you have to have good sounding speakers, good microphones that work well. Most people now just use amp modelers. They plug into their computer, they pull up their program, everything is done for them. They've already been pre-mic'd, pre-selected. They're all using the same algorithms. They can create
If it sounds good, it sounds good.
great sounds. They're so easy to use. Doesn't take any skill at all, but it doesn't take any creativity either. Then of course you have the MIDI packs that you can buy if you can't play keyboards. So it'll just have pre-programmed chord progressions because for some reason people can't just kind of space their fingers out and learn to play a few chords like that. Or maybe just experiment. What is this? What is this? In the early 2000s, labels stopped signing rock bands essentially because it was way too resource intensive. It was far easier to sign artists that could make their own music using a laptop and a microphone. Why is this a bad thing? Well, let's start with the creative dependency on technology limits the ability of people to innovate, I believe. Could be wrong about that. Maybe it helps them innovate. I don't think so, though. The homogenization of music.
It can help. It can definitely help. And this is, again, coming from a confirmation bias to rock music. It's coming from tackling one thing. I hope he gets into other genres, whatever.
Over-reliance on similar tools, as I just brought up with the amp models, creates a lack of diversity. I think that leads to music becoming more formulaic and people just following trends of using certain types of...
I totally agree. And that's why I don't like a lot of music. But there's a lot of older music I also don't like. There's newer music. There's music from when I was a teenager. There's music from before I was born. There's always going to be good and bad music. You know? No.
Sounds. This is why these trap beats have been in vogue for the last 20 years. People they know they work, so they just keep using them all the time. Quality versus quantity. This is a big, big thing. Okay, so the easier production makes the process go faster, which creates an oversaturation of music, making it harder to find really exceptional things, as Ted Gioia talks about in this clip.
This is Spotify's way of using AI. They have AI songs, they attribute them to people that don't exist, and this allows them to take royalties.
Yeah, there's a big thing going on with UDO, that voice crack, and how they're just making AI songs and artists that don't actually exist getting payouts on Spotify. That's a whole different conversation, but
that would go to musicians and keep them for themselves.
On the AI front related to music is too easy to make, I made a video last week called I Told You This Was Going to Happen, and I played some songs off UDO, and I was saying how my kids could detect that they were AI songs, but other people could not. Well,
yeah, I can kind of tell. I can tell. I don't know exactly what it is. I listen to a lot of the music coming out now versus 10 years ago, decades to decades, generations to generations. So much stuff does sound a lot alike, like no matter what genre it is. And so UDO is like actually not sounding like a lot of the artists, which to me is actually a good thing. It's quite refreshing, actually. He's not really touching much on like the creative bone on using these things. He's kind of just talking from the business standpoint and the industry standpoint, which I understand is totally something to be talked about. We need money to keep things going, but he's not necessarily talking about anything creatively because anything can always be used as a tool. For example, he just said it's all being trained on different songs to create music. Well, so are we. We're constantly updated by what we hear and what we like, don't like. That still influences us to make what we make. So, I don't know.
Versions of these songs, whether you create it or whether they create it, they're going to own it. And just to show you how easy it is to model someone's voice with AI, I'm speaking to you through a voice modeling program called 11 Labs that was trained on my voice over a 4-week period. So for those of you that keep writing to me every day, I get about 20 of these a day, and they always start, Rick, I wrote a song that I think can be a hit. I used AI to hear it because I know nothing about making music. That's literally from an email I got yesterday. This reminds me of the best AI critique I've seen. Creative AI tools can be seen as sophisticated plagiarism plagiarism software, as they do not produce genuinely original content, but rather emulate and modify existing works by artists subtly.
Yeah, but everything emulates something. I mean, I'm sure this guy is a great musician, but, I don't know of any of his songs. Maybe I'm wrong, but I could listen to his songs and they could sound like they're emulating this versus someone I see on TikTok that's emulating this versus someone who I grew up listening to emulating this. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily a good argument.
Enough to circumvent copyright laws. Well, what's funny about that is that was actually written by ChatGPT. Act 2. Music is too easy to consume.
Totally. But so what?
So this is the water faucet in my kitchen. But imagine this is streaming on Spotify or Apple Music. You can turn it on, you can turn it off, but what's going on in the stream of water is all of the music that's on these platforms. Now imagine this is one artist's entire
Oh, don't drink the water, man. It must be something in the water.
output. Their entire catalog. Might be The Police, could be Billie Eilish, could be Led Zeppelin, the Beatles. And then this dropper is each of their songs. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I just did a whole record there. And eventually you exhaust their whole catalog. When I hit this and I start the stream, the music has very little importance if you think about it this way. It goes from the faucet, down the drain, out to the sewer, where it's recycled again.
I get what you're saying.
In this case, the music is not recycled like it is through the sewer. There were 100,000 new songs added every day in 2023 to streaming platforms. That's more than one song per second for the entire year. By comparison, when I was a kid, if I wanted to buy this Led Zeppelin 2 record, I had to get a job or borrow money from my parents to buy it because I wanted to own it. I wanted it to be in my collection. This album here, Pat Metheny, New Chautauqua, I paid $8 for, brand new, with the money that I made by bagging groceries at Tops.
Let me guess, he's about to say something like it means more to him because he had to work for it. Watch.
Grocery store in Fairport, New York. You actually had to expend energy. When a kid opens Spotify and clicks on a song, they can just skip to the next one if they don't like it. Think about this. All of the music that exists, or at least it's been uploaded to Spotify or Apple Music, is available for $10.99 a month. I'm talking about all of Michael Jackson's music, all of AC/DC, Pink Floyd, Whitney Houston, Tupac, Kendrick Lamar, Juice WRLD, Eminem, Dr. Dre, all the works of Beethoven, of Bach, of Mozart, of Stravinsky, of Shostakovich.
Yes, we get the point. We get the point.
Of John Coltrane, of Miles Davis, Brad Meldo, of Pat Metheny, Keith Jarrett, all of that.
Okay.
$10.99 a month for the price of what we used to pay for one album. It's all available on these streaming platforms.
Yeah, with all the prices going up on everything, man, imagine if we did have to pay the exact same price for music.
Which is why music is not as valued by young people. There is no sweat equity put into obtaining it, having it be part of your collection, having it be part of your identity of who you are. These are the bands I believe in. These are the artists that I love. And I'm going to share it with my friends. I'm going to bring that record to school. I'm going to play it for my friends after school. We're all hanging.
Yeah, but there's an argument you can make on, I guess, playlisting, right? I think a lot of people that I know, they make specific playlists, personalized playlists. Sometimes they'll share it with a friend. That's kind of a version. I mean, I understand what he's saying. It's so vast when it was very encapsulated. But at the same time, you're still sharing art. You're still having kind of like your personalized mixtape. I remember when I was in middle school and high school, I burned CDs and made little mixtapes. The albums I make are more like mixtapes than they are albums right now.
Out reading the back cover of it and seeing who played on it. These things meant something. What was on here meant something.
Yeah, but you can't just state from your perspective that it doesn't mean something to someone. You know, like, who are you to tell someone else what something means to them? I can say that because I did the same thing last week and my friend called me out on it. Like I get like wanting to have a conversation about it and change perspectives a little bit and exchange thoughts about it. But just saying that it doesn't mean anything and it means less.
Ultimately, people will do that and then they don't listen to them because you vote with your attention. So try this. Try to sit down just a couple times a week, play just a few songs. Don't look at your phone, or as I call it, the thought deletion device.
Man, I lay in bed. I will fall asleep with full on these very headphones for the last 3-4 years, these same headphones. And I will put on an album and I will close my eyes and listen to it. I'm an example of how that's not true. You don't have to do that. I will obsess over the same 10 songs over and over and over again. Yeah, I don't think that's a good argument, man. I'm going to be honest with you.
Because it empties your mind out. Don't look at TikTok.
Yeah, I do agree with if you're spreading yourself thin on your attention and your energy. But that's more of a psychology thing. I don't think that has to do with the music itself and the tools being made of the music. I think this is more to do with like addiction and dopamine things. I just don't think it has to do with art. I don't think what this guy is saying has to do with art. I think it has to do with strictly business, keeping people on platforms and mind controlling us.
Don't look at YouTube or Twitter. Don't look at Instagram. Just listen to the music.
Don't look at Instagram. Just watch my next video right there. But seriously, thank you for watching this. I really appreciate it. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And here's another video you can watch.